Hey guys, so another question that happens a lot is three vane or four vane. Okay, um, the short answer to this is mainly preference. Mainly, there is some reasons that a four vane would be more beneficial than a three vane, uh, depending on situation. Okay. Um, you can get all into vane height, vane length, the whole 9 yards. It At the end of the day, the reason you're building your arrow, you have to have that concrete reason of what is this arrow for before you really start making a decision as to what type of vane configuration you want. So for me, primarily hunting. So the lower the profile, because it's Oklahoma, and let's just face it, if you don't like hunting in the wind, you don't want to hunt in Oklahoma. So for me, wind is going to dictate my arrow builds, because I don't need a lot of wind drift in my shots. So I've got this three vane here, which it worked very well for me for quite a few years, and I shot both fixed and mechanical out of a three vane. It end of the day, we'll just start with a three vane. So the pros of a three vane, in my opinion, are I'm able to make all of my arrows cookie cutter. I'm able to make them identical from start to finish in the build. So from finding spine stiffness or your strong spot on your spine with your cocking vane, to being able to, if you put like a three blade fixed, a fixed three blade on here, I can make all of my arrows the same. So I can get them all squared up. I can have my three blade broadhead matching the same orientation that my vanes are. And that way, all of my arrows, when I yank one out of my quiver, they've all been squared. They're all orientated the exact same way. And they're all, like I said, they're cookie cutter. Consistency's key in any shooting, whether it's archery, rifle, you name it. Consistency with your ammo is key. So that's the biggest pro of a three blade or a three vane, in my opinion, if you're shooting a fixed broadhead. So with a three vane configuration, generally speaking, you'll have a little bit higher vane height. That's because your total square flight surface, if you will, needs to be a little bit greater than that of a four vane, because you have to be able to have good steerage in your arrow. However, there's some drawbacks. The higher the vane height, the more influenced the arrow is from environmental factors such as wind. So it's something to think about. If you're making a hunting arrow, you have to really find that fine line of vane height to repeatability downrange and consistent repeatability downrange in your performance. So now, moving on to four vane. So a four vane configuration, you're going to get into a whole nother world of controversy with a four vane configuration. There are diehards that believe you need 90 90 90 90, and you have diehards that believe in 60 120. I've shot both. End of the day, what it boils down to is your bow setup and how your downrange result is given your arrow, your broadhead setup, and your arrow rest You have to think of things like that. So the pros of a four fletch, and like this one is a 60-120 offset. The pros of having this setup here is if you're shooting like a fall away, you're not going to have. Let me backtrack there. You're going to have less of a chance of having vane contact if you've got your nock and everything set up correctly. Okay. If you do 90-90-90, which you're going to be vertical, straight vertical off the top, vertical off of your left and your right portions of your arrow, and then straight vertical down, you're going to have the possibility of having cable contact in your throughout the travel of the arrow as it goes through the bow, and you're also going to have a greater risk of having issues with your fall away. So the 60-120 is a little bit more forgiving when you're doing a four fletch in that situation. But so that's a pro of having a four fletch, is you can customize it to meet clearance issues, because it allows you to generally go with a lower profile vane, because you have to compensate for the amount of drag that you are inducing into the arrow. Because let's face it, if you have three, like this one, and you can see the vane height is a lot different, you have to compensate for that steerage. You have to introduce that flight surface to the arrow to be able to help stabilize it. As far as accuracy goes, four fletch is as accurate as three fletch. I mean, let's face it, people have won tournaments four fletch and three fletch. So people have killed deer and elk and antelope and mule deer and brown bear and everything else like that, three fletch and four fletch. It's end of the day, they're going to perform if you have everything set up right and correctly. As far as shooting a broadhead with these, once again, me personally, I cookie cutter all of my arrows. So what I generally do is I shoot right now I'm shooting a fixed 3-blade. So what I did is, if you are looking at the arrow like this, right? I put one of the blades straight down the center here, and then I put the other two to where they match this lower vane's angle. So that way, when I pick up an arrow, any of my arrows out of my quiver, and they've got a broadhead on them, when I shoot, they're going to be consistent the same. With a four fletch, I will say, with all the shooting that I have done with the four fletch, the orientation of the broadhead, fixed blade that is, to the vanes did not seem to have the effect that it does with a three vane. Okay. That being said, me personally, if I'm gonna spend all the money on an arrow and I'm gonna put all the time, energy, and effort into shooting and developing a good arrow for my setup, I'm gonna make them all cookie cutter and all the same, to where no matter which one I pick up, I don't have to worry about if I miss high and right or high or low and left or whatever. I don't have to worry, okay, was it me? Was it the arrow? Was it the bow? What was it? At least if all your arrows are the same, it's one thing you've eliminated from, if something does go wrong in a shot, you've eliminated, okay, well, my arrows are all the same, right? So it's really comes down to preference and what you want out of your setup. Once again, I will end with this statement. This arrow has killed deer. This arrow has killed deer. 3 vane, 4 vane comes down to preference, and it comes down to, end of the day, comes down to what you want. Best advice I can give you, if you're conflicted in 3 vane or 4 vane, if you've got the time If you've got the want to, is get you 2 or 3 different types of vane, get you some brand new arrows, get your arrows squared up, cleaned up, and cut down, and fletch your arrows. Fletch some in a 3 vane, fletch some in a 4 vane. Go through the whole process of squaring them up and putting your broadhead on and shooting them at 30, 40 yards, and see which one groups better for your setup. And I'll tell you right now, currently I've got a Matthews Triax and I've got a Matthews VXR 31, and broadhead wise, the same arrow in one does not shoot as good as the same arrow in another. My Triax, absolutely, this arrow right here, which is this Easton Bloodline arrow, it shoots this arrow with a 3 vane and a broadhead more accurately than this arrow with a 4 vane and a fixed broadhead on it. It just does. It's just what your setup likes, and you can have 2 of the exact same brand bow set up identically to one another, and one's just gonna shoot a different. They're gonna shoot different at the end of the day. So it just boils down to: do you want